Hey everyone, in this video I want to share with you how you can take a standard bar chord and make a simple shift in position which will really open up your blues playing like this. Now I'm not going to go through every note I was playing there, the tab will be on Patreon if you need that, but really I want to zone in on the different techniques I was using which you can then take away and apply to your own playing. So pretty much everything you saw there was based around the simple concept of taking the A-shaped bar chord. So I'll assume we all know this shape, so we're in the key of C here, so this is a C chord starting with a 3rd fret there. Now, what we want to do is take this and rather than playing the lowest note here of the 3rd fret of the A string, the root note of C, we're going to shift that up so that becomes the 3rd of the chord, so an E here at the 7th fret on the A string, but then with that same bar on the D, G and B strings here. So this is now the chord, so from this position we shift up to this position here. So C chord, still a C chord, but now in 1st inversion. And this really opens up a whole load of new possibilities. Now I've shown this in other videos, but here I really want to zone in on how we can use this in a blues context. Now the first thing to note is once we get up into this new position, we're right on top of the major pentatonic scale. So C major pentatonic here. Obviously that's exactly the same notes as the A minor pentatonic, which you'll know in that position, but we're just starting here on the root note of C, and we've got that scale right under our fingers in this position, and clearly here we've got all these chord tones we can access as well, so we can use this position to then add in pentatonic notes around it. And then of course there's some blue notes as well that we can add in to bring out that blues flavour. And not only can we use this over the C chord, but then of course we can use that over the other chords of F and G, and use all these same techniques on all 3 chords in the 12-bar blues. So let me walk through what I was playing in the intro and you see some of the techniques I'm using to really bring this to life. So you saw me start off with a pretty standard chop. You know that classic pattern based around the C chord there, but then moving up into this new position and playing a lick based around this zone. So it's pretty normal when you move from here up to here to use some kind of hammer on. So outside of blues you might use this note at the 5th fret, this D, and then hammer on to the 7th fret on the A string like that, and then hit some of the notes with the bar at the 5th fret on the other strings. You know, pretty nice sound, that kind of thing. But in blues we can also bring in this note here of the 6th fret. This is an E flat, the blue note in the key of C, so that's going to lead us really nicely from E flat up to E, that minor to major movement, bit more bluesy. And then I'm also using a hammer on from 5 to 7 on the D string, and then landing on this double stop of 5 and 5 on the D and G strings, which really bring out the C chord there, so that kind of a lick, and it really brings in some movement while still strongly outlining the chord that we're on. Then the next time around I'm targeting this blue note of E flat again, but this time an octave higher, here at the 8th fret on the G string. So when we take our pentatonic scale, we've got blue note of E flat there at the 6th fret on the A, and then carry on up the scale, blue note of E flat again at the 8th on the G, and then complete the scale. So we can bring in these notes for extra blues flavour, and here I'm just playing this 8th fret note but sliding quickly down to the 7th just so we get that little flavour of it, something like so. And then a walk up 5, 6, 7 on the A string. So these notes are all coming from this shift up within the C chord, but what my mind is thinking is about getting then up to the 4 chord of F, which of course starts at the 8th fret there on the A string. So this takes me up to that position. And then back into that chop. Once I've played that chop on the F chord, I'm using that same walk up again, but this time it's going to be 10, 11, 12, which then gets me into our position where we've got the 3rd of A on the bottom of the chord and then the bar at the 10th fret there. And then playing 10 to 12 on the D string, which then leads me into 13 on the D string, an E flat, which is the flat 7 in an F chord, so it's going to really bring out that dominant 7 blues flavour. I'm playing that with the other notes in the chord above it. Really nice way to bring in that 7 chord. And once again, you see, rather than just playing single note lines all the time, I'm really trying to outline the chords here. Then back to the 1 chord of C, and this time I'm going to bring in some bending. But I'm still thinking that, I'm playing in this kind of shape, and the note we're going to bend on is this 7th fret on the G string. You'll know from your pentatonic playing, that's always the note you bend the most. So here all I was doing was bending it up, and then a little slide off of the blue note at the 8th fret, back into the unbent 7th fret. So bend up the 7th, slide back to it, and then 5 on the G and 7 on the D. So something like that. Really nice, simple couple of bends which still outline that C chord. And then this Keith Richardsy kind of thing where we're taking the bar 5, 5 and 5 on the D, G and B strings, and then come to 7 on the D string with 6 on the B string, and we can just alternate between that, so it's like 1 to the 4 chord. And a million things you can do with that. In this context and then down to this, which is just a partial G chord there in the E shape to bring us into the 5 chord. So I landed on the 5 chord of G down here, but really I want to bring this up into our position that we've been looking at. So the A version of the G chord is here at the 10th fret, and then we just shift. So then our root note is the 3rd of B there at the 14th, with our bar at the 12th. So now we saw earlier on the C chord, that kind of a lick, and I'm just doing pretty much the same thing, but now on the G chord up there. Now one thing I really like to do with these chords is use a lot of these double stops. So for example there, I'm playing 12 and 12 on the D and G strings together, and then just hammering on only on the D string, 2 frets above, and pulling off, and then coming down, doing a similar thing on the A and D strings together. And then I think you also saw me do a 1 step down to kind of bring in a chromatic movement, then down to here where we're now on the 4 chord of F. So something like that. And then again I'm using these double stop hammer-ons, starting on the F chord using the G and B strings together, and then hammering on, pulling off just on the G string, and then down to the D, same again, something like so. And then just some more blue note kind of licks on that C chord, so using this kind of sting technique where I'm sliding from the 7th quickly up to the 8th and back again to bring in that blue note. And then you could do exactly the same on the D string, and then landing on this G note here, 5th fret on the D string, which kind of outlines that 5 chord of G ready for the turnaround. Then to end, I've got this Hendrixy kind of thing, like that. And what I'm doing here is approaching this 1 chord of C, so this is the C chord, but with the shift up there on the A string, and approaching that from what we call from the back door. So really I'm playing B flat to B to C, but playing all of them in this shifted position with a hammer on the A string. So B flat, B, C, and then a little slide out 8 and 8 on the B and high strings, which just comes straight from a C chord there. Something like that.